Hi everyone. Today we have a very special guest, Ami. She's a very well-renowned travel influencer. She was the first woman in India who made their career around travel. She has published in several websites, including BBC Travel, Deccan Herald, Lonely Planet India, Huffington Post, and the Travel Cafe of Money Control. Welcome to our podcast. So, I just want to know, how did you transition your career from a marketing consultant to a travel influencer, photographer, and a blogger?
Thank you so much, Satak, and hi everyone. It's really nice to be on this podcast. Coming to your question as to how I transitioned from a marketing consultant to a travel writer, blogger, author. Well, to be very honest, it was not something that I envisioned. Travel was always a part of my life. I used to travel pretty frequently, even when I was working, and not just business travel. I'm talking about leisure travel. Practically every long weekend, we used to just take off as a family or sometimes with friends, and then we used to have these two odd long vacations through the year. So I was always known for my travel, even at my office space. And there used to be a lot of people who used to come and ask me for tips on certain destinations that I have been to, where they could go, some inspiration, etc. So I decided, why not just, document travel? And that's how my travel blog actually started. So it was more a hobby blog. It was more to help people in and around the office, basically, to answer their queries, where they could go, what they could do, those kind of things. And that's how thrillingtravel.in was born. And it continued as a hobby blog while I was working because I really didn't have the time beyond a point to invest into it. But what happened is I decided to take a little break because I said I've been working continuously for 15 odd years. Let me just take a break for 3, 4 months and, refresh and rejoin somewhere else. Um, what actually happened is during those 3, 4 months to keep myself busy, I started focusing on the blog and it started giving me opportunities. And that's when I got my first opportunity to write for Lonely Planet. And I guess from that point on, I just continued working and, things were pretty much, they were quite positive. And I decided to just go ahead, go with the flow. And that transition happened even without me realizing it. Um, After 6, 7 months, I actually took a call saying that, okay, this is giving me a little more balance in life. So let's just continue with this. And yeah, that's when I became a full time travel writer and a blogger. And as assignments started flowing in, I started traveling to different places and I kept writing about it. And eventually we came down to the lockdown. Uh, During the lockdown, everybody was stuck at home. And one of the things about travel is when I go to certain places, or rather, whenever I go to any place, I kind of imagine people there. I imagine whether it is a folklore which triggers that imagination. Sometimes it's the nature which just triggers some imagination. I just imagine people there. I imagine what their life is going to be like, and if a certain incident has taken place, how that incident would have taken place. I kind of piece together a story in my head. Uh, During the 2020 lockdown, that is the kind of space that I was in. There were a lot of stories running through my head, uh, and I said, why not write fiction? Why not put it together as a book? So I wrote down 1 or 2 chapters. I ran it past my husband and a couple of my other friends. And they said, hey, this is damn good. Why don't you write a book? And that's how the book happened. And I launched it in 2021. That was last year. And I would say I have got a fairly decent reception to it. So, yeah, that's how I became an author.
Okay, that's very good. I mean, so I just want to know, how difficult was it? Like, means it was completely 360-degree, like from a marketing consultant to a travel blogger. Like, it was from a corporate life to a very freelancer kind of life?
Uh, I won't say it was a completely easy peasy thing, kind of a thing. I did have my challenges. See, for 15, 16 years, I was working. I had a paycheck which came to me at the end of the month. Fixed hours, not fixed hours, unreasonable hours sometimes of working. And it was, people around me kind of thing. And suddenly I was all alone. I had to maintain a certain discipline. I had to tell myself, like, come what may, 9 to 5, I have to sit and write. So I had to keep a certain discipline in my head. I had to build a new routine altogether. Um, I had to start making different goals. Uh, and suddenly I was all alone. Like, there was no one to talk to. There was no one to share my, views about blogging or any challenges that might have cropped up, or maybe even, a writer's block. There was, it was kind of a little difficult because I have always been a very social person, so that the transition was a little bit of a difficult thing. But then eventually I eased into it, and I kind of started enjoying it. I started enjoying the lone time, because it actually triggered my writing. Uh, and I also started enjoying my solo travels. I used to solo travel before, but this was more frequent now. And I kind of really started enjoying that. And I think eventually it took me a year or so to kind of completely ease into it, but I kind of loved it. Uh, I would also say that the experience that I had as a marketing and a branding person also helped me brand myself, market my own work. Uh, and I did have a lot of experience which I carried forward from my previous job to this job, which is basically on SEO, writing, on digital marketing as such, social media marketing. I mean, these are things which I used to do for someone else, but suddenly I was doing that all for myself. And I would definitely say that experience kind of helped me take things forward in a more methodical and organized manner as a blogger.
Okay, if someone wants to follow your career path, what advice will you give him?
uh, to be very honest, and I say this because I've been now blogging for almost 8 years plus. And when I say blogging, I say full time blogging. I would say nothing matches your corporate paycheck. So if you are looking for money, uh, this is not a career path which is yet taken off in India or in Asia as such. We still have a lot of work to be done. We still have a lot of organization that needs to be done to this particular path. Uh, there is no standard as such which has been set. There is no, how do I put it? There are no rules and regulations. A blogger doesn't come under media. I mean, it comes partially under media, but we are still not governed by media rules. Pay scales are not defined. So there are a lot of things which are pretty unorganized in the sector. So if someone is looking for a full-time career in this, I would say be aware that you will not be earning that 5 figure or 6 figure paycheck at the end of the month. There will be months where you will probably not be earning anything at all. So I would say, for me, it kind of was a little easier because I had my savings to fall back on, and I did have the support of my other half. So, it kind of, I was able to tide over things till they're stabilized. So now after 8 years, yes, we do earn out of our blogs, but nothing really matches the corporate pay scale that I had.
Okay, so the people who generally visit your blog, are they mainly from India or from outside of India?
I do have an audience across the world, but
Mhm.
yes, India does form the majority of my audience. More so, I think this phenomenon is even more so after the 2020 scenario where, right now, for example, travel is more domestic. And I have written extensively on places in India. So it is natural for the Indians to kind of hit the block. But I follow India, followed by US and Europe. That's where my audience really comes
Cool, 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 cool. So, like, how many countries you have traveled to, basically?
Okay. I will have to sit and count. To be very honest, I don't count. I know it's over 20 plus, at least for the
Okay.
last time someone else had asked me the same question. And I had counted back then, and I remember it was over 20. Uh, but I don't really count the countries because I tend to go to same places again and again if I really like them. I don't mind repeating places, and I often find offbeat things in the places that I've been to. So, for example, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a place I've been to thrice. The first time I visited, I did the popular Central Circuit. The second time I visited, I did the South. Then the third time, which was recently, just 2021, I visited the northern part of Sri Lanka. So, I do tend to repeat certain countries over and over again, and therefore I just stopped counting the number of countries I've been to.
So, what will be your next country? Like, how do you plan? You want to go there, basically?
I don't know. I see. I have no concrete plans as of now. Whatever comes my way, I will just take it forward. Uh, Even if it is Sri Lanka again, why not? There are a lot of unseen things still left. Uh, I generally just take travel as it comes. As far as family vacations are concerned, we generally plan a little in advance, and I think this year we'll probably just be sticking to domestic holidays. Uh, Internationally, if any assignments come together or come through, I will definitely be taking those.
Cool, 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 cool. What's the most interesting thing that happened while you were traveling?
Ah, uh, I can't say there was one interesting thing. There's always been something or the other which was interesting. Um, Let me see. Okay. One of the things that strikes me right now while I'm talking to you is my Ladakh road trip. So it was pretty eventful in a lot of ways. You faced a lot of landslides, and then there were middle of nowhere in Changtang Valley. One of the cars, the tire was punctured, and there was not a single soul in sight. Forget a bird. Also, there was nothing in, no one in sight, and we were like stuck out of nowhere. And the guy had forgotten his toolkit, so we couldn't even change the tire. So we were just stranded in the middle of nowhere, and the only thing that was really positive about that place was there was a lone waterfall there. So a few of us went and just perched ourselves, saying, "Okay, let's just figure out what life is." And just then, an army truck passed by, and that guy stopped and he started helping us out. So while he was helping us out, very casually he says, "Madam, आप वहाँ से हट जाइए. You please go and sit somewhere else. Sit this side." So I was like, okay, but why? And it turns out we were in the line of sight of snipers, Chinese snipers. So we were at a border area and we didn't even know there were snipers on the other side. So that kind of completely freaked me out. I was like, oh my God. Like, so he's like, you sit this side, it should be okay. So any case, problem sorted. We were on our way, but yeah, that did leave a. I mean, now I can laugh about it, but at that time we were like, oh no, we didn't even realize, and we were like, most of us were even scared to look that side, the direction he had pointed out at.
Cool, cool, cool. So, how has the travel changed the way you view the world? Like, because you have exposure from traveling to many countries, you have seen many cultures. How does affect the way you see the world?
The one thing I always tell people, and I've seen this for myself, and I've seen this for my daughter as well. Travel tends to open you to new things. It makes you more tolerant. It lets you accept certain things which you otherwise would think, you would probably be very rigid about. So I've seen this a lot, and I've seen this more of late with my daughter as well. So more she travels, the more she tends to open her eyes to newer things, and the more accepting she is of things. And when she comes back home, that also makes her a little more tolerant to what we have, because in some way, travel also makes us grateful for what we have. So I think all positive in that sense. It definitely changes the way you tend to look at the world.
Cool, cool, cool. So, like, when do you travel someplace? Like, how do you plan your trip and how do you do your packing and everything?
So typically, when I travel to a place, so there are two things that happen. One is if I have planned a vacation, I do the research, and if sometimes it's an assignment, then the itinerary is given to me. So either ways, there's a lot of research I do before I travel. I tend to read up about the place. Uh, I tend to look up different blogs, understand. If there are hidden places or hidden spots in a certain destination, and do a little more research about that. I tend to even look at photography, which is being done over there, so that I can understand what kind of camera, lenses, etc., that I need to carry with me. So yeah, I tend to do a little of that research before I go, and yeah, a little bit on the safety aspects, what mobile phone works and what kind of currencies and how easy is it to carry currency or exchange it over there. Those kind of basic tick mark research is also a part of this research. And then, yeah, while packing, I tend to ask one of the locals over there what the weather conditions are like, and if there are any norms for religious places. Like, for example, in Sri Lanka, they prefer light colored clothes when you enter Buddhist temples. So that was something, thankfully, that we realized before, so that it's easy to pack those kind of, basic norms kind of thing. Uh, Even if the itinerary does include a lot of religious places, I do tend to take a little more conservative outfits. And yeah, that's pretty much what the packing part involves.
Okay, so how do you manage your expenses when you go on a trip?
See, it's most of the time since I've done my research, we pick things which are within our budget, and kind of you know we also, if I'm traveling on my own, I also try to figure what I mean how expensive the location itself is. Like, what is the, for example, the taxi fare from one place to the other place, etc. So that kind of helps me build a rough budget in my head. And I carry the I mean I pretty much try to stick to that particular range. And if it is a sponsored trip, typically everything is paid for. So the only expenses that I really need to take care of is if I want to do any kind of shopping over and up, which again depends on the destination that I'm going to, because I'm not
Okay,
a very big shopper either. So yeah, that's
okay.
pretty
So
much how
how
it
do
is.
you, yeah. So how do you see the travel industry will evolve in the next few years, like 3 to 5 years? What changes do you see?
Uh, See, travel is slowly getting back to what it was earlier. So I do see the upsurge coming through, but it's going to be a little more safe travel. It's also going to be a lot based on reputation. Like, people will look up reviews, people will see how safe that particular destination is health wise, how easy the facilities are in terms of medical treatments, etc. I mean, these are things, at least for the next 1 or 2 years, that while the pandemic is on, uh, is expected out of travel. So, norms, for example, quarantine norms, if there are any, of course, a lot of countries are doing away with it, but that is something that I foresee. being essential part of any destination that you are planning. Um, what what kind of vaccination norms they have, um, how easy is it to get insurance over there? How, I mean, is your insurance rather covering that destination? These are things which honestly was not there earlier in travel, but I foresee that people will start taking these things a little more seriously as far as international destinations are concerned. I also foresee domestic travel taking on a little more strongly for the next, at least next 1 to 2 years. People are raring to go out, and right now, ever since the pandemic, road trips have been on a rise. Probably because you carry a bubble with you wherever you're going. So I foresee that continuing for the next 1 year at least, before people actually start stepping out and going international. Because right now, international travel is a little more expensive than the usual travel that we used to do back before 2020. So yeah, that's the way I see it. Uh, it's a slow and steady process. Eventually, I think it will take another 2 to 3 years for us to get back to what we were earlier.
Okay, so you have recently launched your book about travel. Can you please tell our audience what is it about?
Okay, so the book is called When Places Come Alive, and that is actually how I foresee how I experience my travel. Like I said, I experience travel in form of stories, in form of people, emotions. Dialogues run through my head. So wherever I go, I tend to, at least most of the places, I tend to, replay it back in the form of a story. So a case in point, uh, and this is like a spoiler for the book, but a case in point being, there's a village called Kuldhara in Rajasthan. Kuldhara is a ghost village, and
Okay.
that particular place fascinated me even before I had been there. Like I had read about it somewhere, and I had actually earmarked it on my itinerary, saying that this is a must visit place. And one of the reasons for that is it had a very mysterious story to it, where the entire village was emptied overnight by villagers. So the next day, there was not a soul in place, and nobody knows where the villagers went. Overnight, those villages were just empty. Now, there are multiple explanations to it, uh, and there is a very folk tale kind of an explanation also to it. And when I heard the folktale kind of an explanation, I imagined characters. I actually imagined the whole scene taking place. I imagined what might have happened, what they would be wearing, what kind of dialogues, what kind of attitude that the villain would have had, and that is what I recreated as one of the stories in my book. So, When Places Come Alive is actually travel fiction, which is inspired by these places. And Kuldara is just one of the many stories. I have covered about 10 different destinations, 10 different stories. And each one either arises from a folklore or a legend that goes around in the place, or in certain cases, there are mysterious happenings in the place. Like, for example, again, another spoiler is in Bhutan, there is a place where you have these migratory birds coming in every year. They call the black neck crane. Every year they come in from Tibet. They stay the entire winter and then they fly back. However, there's a very unusual thing that happens when they come in. So they come into this place called the Gangtang Valley. And when they come to the Gangtang Valley, there's a monastery there, and they circle the monastery thrice before landing in the valley. And when they leave, also they circle the monastery thrice before leaving. Now, nobody knows what is the reason for it. They've tried some scientific reasoning to it and whatever, but again, uh, for me, the reasoning in my head came from imagination, and that is again one of the stories that I have in the book. So
Okay.
these stories are with real characters. I mean, like characters that I've imagined, the kind, characters that give you a little gist about the culture of the place, like their names and everything is from that particular place. And I've tried to put in nuances of the place as to how they might have risen to Buddhist chimes, and then how they must be living their life over there. So I've tried to put in those nuances into every story, and therefore when places come alive.
Okay, so who inspired you to write this book? Like your
To be
family,
very honest,
friends?
they were very encouraging, but the inspiration actually came in from the places itself. Because these
Okay.
stories that I tell you, which I've put together in the book, they keep running in my head. It's like a TV serial. It just keeps running in my head. So every time I think of those stories, that place comes alive. So it is actually, to be honest, the place itself which inspired me to write these stories.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Amy, thanks for being on a podcast. It was a pleasure having you. We got a lot of answers and advices from you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Sarthak, and it was a pleasure being here. Looking forward to talk